Hello, what is up guys? EvilDuoStar here today, back with another Black Desert video. Today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Musa Succession, the main class that I play in Black Desert, give you some combos, intro, how to play the class, anything you can possibly want to know about this class except for PvP, because your boy doesn't do PvP. That being said, all of the combos, mechanics, and everything I'm going to show you in this video will probably apply to PvP instances since we're going to show you all the different combos and how the mechanics of the class work, so you'll probably still take something away from this video. Quickly though, before we get into it, if you're new to the channel, new to Black Desert, and you've been watching the videos on the channel, but you still have not subscribed yet, please consider it. Helps grow my channel, you'll stay up to date when new content comes out, and I would greatly appreciate it. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it, and let's start by talking about the minimum skill points you need in order to play the Musa. So I'm going to rock your world and tell you that you only need 529 skill points to be able to play Musa Succession at the most basic level. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have fun, but you're at least going to be able to play the class and experience how the mechanics work. Anyway, skills you're going to want to take at this most beginner level. First of all, you need to spec into Succession, which will cost you 3 skill points. Scrolling down the skill tree, you're going to be looking for the skill Prime Serene Mind. This is the skill that makes the Musa Succession the Musa Succession. So you need to take that, that's your first priority skill. After that, back up at the top of the skill tree, we're going to want to take Backstep Slash and go ahead and max that into Prime Backstep Slash. We will take Blind Slash, Ultimate Blind Slash, and finally Blind Slash of the Prime variety. Scrolling a bit further down, we will go until we get to Dragon Bite and Prime Dragon Bite. And finally, Rising Storm, Ultimate Rising Storm Blaze, and Prime Rising Storm. These are the only skills you need to play the Musa at the most basic level, 529 skill points. I'll show you this beginner combo that you can run with this when we get to the combos section of the video. But if you want to play this class a little bit more fluently, there's a lot more skills you're going to have to take, and you'll probably want to pick them up sort of in this order. The first and foremost is Chase and Ultimate Chase. This is the skill that makes the Musa. It is what lets you infinitely dash. Next up is going to be Musa Spirit and Absolute Musa Spirit. This is the skill that gives you all of your energy back after you've been dashing for 4 hours. To begin doing more advanced combos, you're going to want to pick up Gale first. Gale is one of the best skills to animation cancel with on the Musa. So we're going to take Gale, Ultimate Gale, and Prime Gale. After that, you're going to want to pick up Blooming. This is a big damage nuke that you can run every once in a while, and it can be used in a lot of animation cancels, so go ahead and take all the way through Prime Blooming. Branching from the Rising Storm tree, we're going to take Cyclone Slash and Prime Cyclone Slash. This is used in a lot of different animation cancels as well. Crust Crusher is another big damage ability that you're going to want, and it'll reset blue buff, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Prime Fiery Angel is a great mobility skill that has super armor. And Divider is an insane healing ability on the Musa class if you take the Absolute variety. You can take the Prime as well for increased mobility. There's an animation cancel you can do on the Prime side, but I just love the healing you get from Absolute Divider way more than I love any mobility. Both of these skills reset blue buff, so it doesn't matter which one you pick. It's just, do you want more mobility or do you want more healing? Now that's pretty much it for the essentials in order to play the class and do the majority of the combos on it. There are obviously other skills that are useful that you can take into here. So for example, Blind Thrust you need for one of the Rabam skills, and if you take it down the Nemesis Slash tree, you get a huge heal, nuke heal that you can run every once in a while. Whirlwind Cut can be spec'd into a DP reduction. You've got Carver that applies a DP reduction with Prime Carver. Stub Arrow is a ranged CC that you can use in PvP scenarios to try and pick an enemy. You'll also use this for the Rabam skill that we'll take a look at here in a second. Prime Eye of the Storm is your buff for your class, definitely something you want to pick up along the way. You have the Retaliation stance, which is your blocking stance that you can use. It provides you a forward guard and a stun on counter hit. And of course you have all the different passives to the class as well. Now as far as the skill enhancement or the Rabam tab goes, most Musas are going to take the Ultimate Musa Spirit for the crit buff, as well as the HP recovery that it provides on instant cast. You then have Quick Shot for PvP scenarios, which is what most people take in general. It provides you a second ranged CC. It is a stiffness, just like Stub Arrow is. So this gives you 2 ranged CCs that you can try and fish for in PvP scenarios. And for the third one, I like Storm Slash just because it does more damage. But in PvP scenarios, Gale Slash has a shorter cooldown and does provide a floating. I don't know how reliable of a skill it is. I've never tried to use it, but it is an option there. And anyway, that's pretty much going to do it as far as the skills go. So with that out of the way, let's move into basic movement on the Musa. And movement on the Musa is really, really simple. So if you hold down the right mouse button and use W or S, you will use the Chase ability. This has like no cooldown, and you can sit here and do this all day as long as you don't run out of stamina. Now your next movement ability we're going to talk about is the Fiery Angel ability. So if you hit W and C at the same time, you will do Fiery Angel. That is how you just basically run forward. Fiery Angel can be chained after a chase to remove the little startup animation, so if we're chasing forward, then Fiery Angel, you see we cover more distance and go faster because there's no wind-up animation. So it's best to dash first and then use Fiery Angel to get the further distance covered at a faster rate. Now, when you use the normal chase ability, you can see there's a bit of a delay before your next chase right there, or maybe you can't even see it because it is pretty quick on its own. But if you press the escape key, go to the settings menu, navigate to the interface settings tab, scroll on down to the action hotkeys, scroll all the way to the bottom of the list, you're going to see with hotkey evasion WW. If you bind this button to something on your keyboard or mouse, so in this case I'm just going to bind it to 2, hit apply, confirm, and you hold down that button plus the left mouse button at the same time, you will cast that chase ability without any delay between it, but it burns through your stamina like no tomorrow. So just another movement option that you have. And finally, as we alluded to earlier, if you take Prime Divider instead of Absolute Divider, you'll be able to dash forward using the Q and E keys on the keyboard instead of any of the other chase abilities. So if you hold Q and E at the same time, you see that you move forward. It uses your WP, it does not consume stamina, so the only time you're really going to use that is when you are out of stamina to dash a little bit further. And that pretty much does it for movement on the class, so the next thing we need to cover is the Serene Mind buff, or blue buff if you hear it elsewhere, which was this ability right here. So Musa's Succession has 4 big damage skills that you can reset the cooldown of using this blue buff ability. They are Rising Storm Blaze, which is Shift Q LMB, Blooming, which is Shift LMB RMB, Cyclone, which has to be hotkeyed or instant cast after other abilities, so that's what that one was right there, and Gale, which is LMB RMB. So those 4 skills have different length cooldowns, and those cooldowns can basically be removed by using an ability that gives you blue buff. So pretty much every other ability in your kit gives you blue buff, which means you can weave between different abilities and continue to cast other abilities over and over and over again. So the easiest example to show you this is the Rising Storm combo that I was talking about earlier in the video for the beginner combo that you can do with 529 skill points. Now this combo is pretty straightforward. We're going to rotate through the 3 abilities that give you the resets, which were Dragon Bite, Blind Slash, and Backstep Slash, to then cast Rising Storm Blaze over and over and over in between those abilities. So to show you how this works, we're going to Shift Q LMB to start with Rising Storm Blaze. Dragon Bite, Shift Q, LMB, Blind Slash, Shift Q, LMB, Backstep, Shift Q, LMB. Dragon Bite, Shift Q, LMB, Blind Slash, Shift Q, LMB, Backstep Slash, Shift Q, LMB. Dragon Bite, Shift Q, LMB. Getting the idea? You can continually spam that ability combo over and over again. It's a lot easier to do if you hotkey these 2 abilities. However, if you don't want to use the hotbar and you want to manually do this, you can also do the same combo manually. So SLMB, Shift Q, LMB, SE, Shift Q, LMB, backward space, Shift Q, LMB, SLMB, Shift Q, LMB, SE, Shift Q, LMB. So you can do it manually as well. Now, once you've got more skill points and you've unlocked the other skills we took a look at earlier on in this video, there's a lot more combinations that become possible, especially with this reset mechanic. So rather than go through like exact combos you have to follow, blah, 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 we are going to take a look at the different animation cancels that you can do with the different skills as you unlock them. And the first one we're going to start with is Gale. So the ability Gale is left mouse, right mouse, and it is a 3-hit ability. So the 3rd hit of Gale is super armored, and likewise the 3rd hit of Gale is the one that does the most damage. So it does more than double the damage of the first 2 hits on the 3rd hit alone. For that reason, we want to use a ton of different abilities that will cancel into this and give us the 3rd hit straight away without the wind-up. There are a lot of abilities that do this. The first one is Crush Crusher, which is down C, and then hold LMB RMB, and you go right into the 3rd hit of Gale. Next up is Blooming, which is Shift LMB RMB, and then hold down left mouse, right mouse, and it goes right into the 3rd hit of Gale. We have Dragon Bite, which also resets Gale's cooldown, which means we can actually cast this multiple times. So for example, if we use down C Crush Crusher to get into a Gale, we can then Dragon Bite and then use another Gale and do 2 Gales back to back on the 3rd hit. An interesting one that has really no use other than to provide you a crit buff before you do it is Forward Blind Thrust. So this is W space left click. We can do W space left clicked and into the 3rd hit of Gale. And we have Backstep Slash that also can instantly cast Gale after it. So Backstep Slash and into 3rd hit of Gale. So what does all this mean? It means you can put out a sick Gale combo of all sorts of damages with Gale. So just to show you it here. And that was pretty much every single ability we talked about here, all the different cancels you could do, showing you that you can like infinitely chain that Gale ability. Now I did screw up and hit a Rising Storm in there because I'm bad at the game. But anyway, that's pretty much it for Gale, so now we're going to move on to the next skill that we called a nuke earlier on, one of the abilities that we can reset constantly, and that is going to be Blooming. So Blooming is Shift LMB RMB, You can see it has a huge windup, and then eventually you launch out the blades forward. So just like before, there's a ton of cancels we can do to make this go a lot faster, and the first one's really stupid and cheeky. You can use the stub arrow ability to cancel it at the start. So when you press the shift key to get ready to cast this ability, if you hit right mouse slightly before you hit left mouse, you will cancel it using the stub arrow ability. So you saw right there that my guy cast stub arrow. Let me get a blue buff just to reset this real quick. If you cast the stub arrow slightly before it by hitting right mouse slightly before, you will instantly cast the blooming ability. Now, blooming can be cast off of our movement abilities as well. So we can cast it off of Carver, which is walking forward and shift L and B. That'll cast the Carver ability. So if we do that same ability, shift L and B, we can then cast the blooming ability right after Carver. Now we can also cast blooming after chase. So if I chase around and then right into blooming with shift L and B, R and B. So you can bypass the Carver and go right into a blooming. Now, as far as other main rotation abilities that it can be cast after, we can cast it after Gale immediately. So let's just lead off with a Gale. You can see we go right on into the blooming ability afterwards. We can cast it immediately after Backstep Slash, so Backstep Slash into the blooming ability. We can cast it immediately after Rising Storm Blaze. And we can cast it after Cyclone. So Cyclone is another combo that we'll take a look at later. So what this means is that just like the Gale ability, we can chain this multiple times in the same combo if we want to. So I guess just as an example here. Cast 3 of them relatively quickly, back to back. And that's going to be pretty much everything I want to cover about the blooming ability. So now we're going to talk about our third major damaging ability that we can reset, and that is Rising Storm Blaze. And there's not a whole lot to talk about with Rising Storm Blaze that hasn't already been shown earlier on in this clips. The only thing that I want to add to that is that this skill has a shorter animation when it is cast after other abilities when not on cooldown and when not being reset by blue buff. What does that mean? So just to show you the based animation time right here, that is a Rising Storm with no buffs, nothing going on. If we then cast Rising Storm after Gale, for example, so Rising Storm right now, you see it has a faster animation. There's no wind up time to start the animation right there. If I try to do that same combo again while Rising Storm is on cooldown, you can see that there's a much longer wind up before he casts that ability. So other abilities that give you that reduced time on the Rising Storm, Blind Slash will do it, Forward Blind Thrust will do it, Backstep Slash will do it, as we already showed, Gale will do it, and last but not least, Cyclone will do it. And that's pretty much all I want to cover with Rising Storm Blaze. Now we've mentioned Cyclone a few times, so now let's actually talk about this Cyclone skill. It is a chain off of the Rising Storm tree that we picked up earlier, and it can be instant cast after 2 main abilities. The first one is Rising Storm itself. So instead of hitting left mouse after doing Rising Storm, if you hit left mouse and right mouse at the same time, you will do Cyclone instead of Blaze. So if we Rising Storm, then left mouse, right mouse, we did Cyclone instead of Blaze. The other way to get this ability to cast is to use Blind Slash, which is SE on the keyboard, and then press left mouse immediately after that. So just like that. Really easy. And those are pretty much the easiest ways of getting Cyclone. The final ability I want to talk about for flowing is Crush Crusher, which is down C on the keyboard. Crush Crusher flows really well after Gale and Cyclone, as well as provides a blue buff for the next set of abilities, which means you can chain this ability awesomely in the middle of rotations. So just as a quick example to show you how this works, if you wanted to start off with a Gale, then immediately into Crush Crusher, you could Gale again, and continue with all sorts of combos after that. So you can throw that Crush Crusher in the middle of any rotation you want, because it resets the blue buff, so long as that the Crush Crusher follows either a Gale or a Cyclone Slash. And Crush Crusher is a pretty big damaging skill. It's one of the highest damaging skills in the kit. And with that, we're pretty much done with what I want to show you as far as cancels and mechanics with the skills themselves. There are other cancels that you can do, but the ones that I pointed out in this video are probably the most popular that you'll use in just about every single rotation you do, PvE or PvP. With that said, I'm going to give you a few rotations now that you can learn and practice to get used to the mechanics and the canceling, but these are by no means the extent of them. As we've already shown you in here, you can literally come up with dozens, probably hundreds of different combinations you can try. Anyway, with that said, let's start off with the first one, and it is a full super armor rotation except for the leading Dragon Bite, which is only a frontal guard. So the skill order here is Dragon Bite, Gale, Rising Storm, Backstep Slash, and Gale. We can then use Fiery Angel to run away like little babies, since that also gives us a super armor while we retreat. So to show you this combination right here, do note that when you cast multiple abilities over and over and over again, they get reduced damage. So when you're using blue buff to reset abilities, it gets reduced damage. Also, Rising Storm will not give you a super armor when you're casting it multiple times if it is on cooldown. So you do have to be careful of that. The rotation does not become super armored when you repeat it. Still though, has great AoE and a solid amount of damage, all very, very quickly. Next up, we're going to call this one the Crust Crusher Canceller. Once again, we showed you all the different skills you can cancel. You can do different ones in here if you want. This is just an example of one that you could do. So in this case, we are going to use Blind Slash into Cyclone, followed by Crust Crusher, Gale, Rising Storm, and then Blaze. You could follow this up with a Blooming if you wanted. You could do a Backstep Slash and go into another Gale. Like we said, you can chain these combos however you want. This is just a nice little base unit to throw in the middle of one. And you saw I finished there with a Backstep Slash to show you how you can continue chaining into other skills. Backstep Slash gave you a blue buff, so you could go Blooming, Rising Storm again, Gale, whatever you wanted to use there. And the last one I want to show you is getting off your 3 most damaging skills as quickly as possible. So it's going to be Rising Storm Blaze, into a Backstep Slash, into a Blooming, into a Gale, which you can then follow up with a Crust Crusher, into another Gale, and then get the heck out of there. So that little combination right there got off most of your highest damaging abilities very, very quickly. And once again, you can chain these however you want. You could probably chain all of these together some way if you really wanted to. As long as you hit a blue buff in between any one of these chains, you can just keep running it. And that's all I'm going to do about combos. We're done with combos. Let's get on to the other little things that you might want to have as far as finishing up elements. And the first one is going to be healing. So as we mentioned earlier on in the video, I love Absolute Divider because it gives you a 5% of your max WP heal. That's your yellow bar over here. 5% of that every time you hit an enemy. I then take the add-on for it that gives you 10 HP back per hit. So the reason I prefer the Absolute is because the Prime version cannot be spammed, whereas the Absolute can. So you can just hold down the E key, and you will just constantly be healing over and over and over and over and over again while you cast that ability. Next heal is our Rabam skill that we talked about earlier, the Ultimate Musa Spirit. I have this bound to 4, but it is also Shift X on the keyboard if you want to do that. This one heals you and gives you a crit chance buff. The final heal is Nemesis Slash, which is chained after the Blind Thrust chain. You just basically keep hitting space and it will chain through these abilities. So Blind Thrust once again was W, space, and left click, and then you hold space, and you will do the Nemesis Slash, which will heal you. So those are your 3 main healing abilities. Once again, we have the WP Recovery on our Shift E ability, and that should pretty much fill your bar up at least halfway. And I think the only thing left to cover are add-ons, and I'm going to be totally honest with you, these add-ons are probably garbage. The only ones that I know are something you're definitely going to want for PvE content anyway are the Divider add-on for recovery of plus 10 HP per hit. Like I said, this is basically an infinite free heal that you can spam. Rising Storm, I love the mana recovery on this one, or the WP recovery. Basically never have any issues whatsoever with running out of resources while grinding. And the only other option that I would really, really recommend is Prime Fiery Angel. This skill has a 5-second cooldown. It is your gap closer that you're going to be using when you go from pack to pack to pack. And all of the buffs that you can add to it are 7-second buffs. So regardless of whatever you choose, it's a 100% uptime buff that you can have on your character as you move from pack to pack here. Also, Fiery Angel gives you blue buff. I don't know that we mentioned this earlier in the video, which means, guess what? You can keep chaining your infinite combos at the end of a Fiery Angel, even if there are cooldowns. And finally, with that, I think we have covered everything I know about the Musa class. So if you are thinking about playing Succession and you're trying to figure out how to play it, I do hope that this video is helpful for you. Try to make it as informative as I possibly could and teach you everything that I've learned in my time playing it. If this video is going to help you here in Black Desert, do let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you have ideas for other videos you want to see in the future, please let me know. And likewise, if you're not subscribed already, please consider it. You'll stay up to date when new content like this does come out. Thank you all so much for watching. Oh, one more thing. You're probably pissed at me because I didn't put anything in the description or any combos on the screen. I think it's cluttering and ugly. So every single combo and every single thing that we discussed in this video, including the entire script, is being posted in the description below, so you can just read through this on your own. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you at the next video, next live stream, or wherever I happen to see you. Peace.